Hockey is back. The ACHA championship season is about to begin. Last season, Minot State reigned supreme in Chicago as they hoisted the trophy in the Windy City. The 2014 ACHA champion is far from being crowned, but the quest for the Murdoch Cup begins right now. Hello everyone and welcome to the LaHaye Ice Center here for the preseason show with me, Kevin Noonan, and Ryan Boyd, also Mr. Play-by-Play himself, Rett McGibbon. Just a quick rundown of the show today. We're going to be talking a little bit about the ACHA, some of the new things that have happened over the hiatus that we took over the summer. Yeah. And one of the big things that's changed, new conferences. With the addition of the Western Collegiate Hockey League, some pretty good teams in that league.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at this league, and there are 3 teams that made the ACHA tournament last year, and quite frankly, an Arizona team that I think all of us would agree was of that caliber to make the tournament, and 2 new teams in Colorado and Colorado State. So I think it's going to be a very solid conference going into this season.
Well, you talk about a conference that I've heard people on this part of the United States refer to kind of as the wild, wild west of collegiate hockey. You got a lot of interesting teams, a lot of different personalities over there, a lot of really good hockey players, though. A couple of guys last year that were in the race for the ACHA Player of the Year. That's going to be a fun conference. It's nice to see those guys go from the independent to being now in a group where they can get that automatic bid.
And you got a couple of D2 teams coming up as well, and they're not going to be too bad. Colorado in the past has always been a pretty solid team in the Nationals. They had a bit of a rough year last year, but they'll bounce back from that. Colorado State as well. They're a good hockey team. Last year they made it to Nationals at D2, lost a couple tough ones in overtime, but typically you can expect a top-tier team in D2 to fit in pretty well in D1. They're not going to be a top 10 team by any means, but they'll be there in that top 25, possibly scratching at the door.
And one of the other things that we discussed before we went on the air was what some of these different conferences that are already in place with the addition of this. Also, which conference do we think is the one of the most difficult conferences? Which one would you think?
Well, it's an interesting question because there's a lot of good teams in each of the conferences, at least in most of them. But I think that it's hard to overlook the CSCHL. You talk about a conference that every year has at least 5 of the 6 teams in the ACHA National Tournament. Last year, there was a point in time when Iowa State, Illinois, Robert Morris, Lindenwood, and Ohio were all in the top 10 or 12 in the ACHA standings. It is a power-packed conference. One of the best in this league, no doubt.
I think one of the most underrated conferences in the league is the ESCHL. And we were talking about that earlier. It's, they've got 4 teams in there that made it into Nationals. And you've got Delaware, Rutgers, Rhode Island, and Stony Brook. Not powerhouses, but teams that on any given night can beat you. And there's somebody to watch out for.
I completely agree with both of you. I think they are both great picks. I think if we look at the CSCHL, you look at the ACHA tournament last year, all 5 of the teams that made the ACHA National Tournament from the CSCHL were top 12 seeds. I think that says a lot about that conference, but you're absolutely right, Rhett, that ESCHL as well may be overlooked, but also a very good conference in this.
You can't forget the CHL, though. There's a couple of really good teams in that conference. I know that they, in particular, would argue for themselves that they're one of the best. You have teams like Adrian, that for a long time was #1 in the nation. You have Oakland, who's always good. You have a lot of competitors in that league as well. So I think all 3 of those conferences could certainly make a case for themselves.
And I think one thing that also needs to be noted, and you don't think about it as much, but these teams that are not in conferences, you have teams that are in the independent league like Liberty. These teams, they have to be in the top 15, at least to make the tournament, in order to just actually have a bid. Obviously, they don't have an automatic bid not being in a conference, but these teams have to play these tough games. They have to win a lot more games than maybe these other teams that might just win out a conference standing. But obviously, teams like Liberty have to come in and win a lot of games against quality opponents. I think it's very difficult as well with the independent league.
I agree with you and I don't agree with you, because the independent league, the nice thing about it is you can play who you want. You're not stuck to a conference schedule where, let's say you're in a weaker conference, you have to play these weak teams, a couple times per year. But you get the luck of the draw, really, in your own opinion. You can play who you want. A team like Liberty, they're playing Ohio, they're playing Davenport, they're going all across the map playing some top-tier teams, and it looks good for them when they do well.
Well, and listen, something we're going to talk about later in the show tonight, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we're going to talk about this new ranking system and the way that works in terms of getting people into the national tournament. When you're an independent team and you can schedule the way that you just described, you can put yourself in a position to succeed and get into that tournament because you're playing not the teams that you're forced to play in your conference. Instead, you're playing some of the best competition in all of the ACHA.
And speaking of the tournament, last year's champions, Minot State, they have sent us a quick review of their team this year, and I think it's going to be another great team again, and we'll take a look at that right now. Actually, we're not going to go to that yet, but here I go.
No, that's fine. I think one thing, though, people shouldn't overlook the WCHL. I know it's a new conference, but like you're saying, solid teams in there, and we're saying the two Division II teams coming up are going to be pretty good as well. The toughest thing about that conference is the fact you have to travel so much.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the teams in the Northeast don't have that inconvenience quite as much as they do in the West. So that's something to look out for. I think it's going to be an interesting league. You're going to see some upsets, and I believe that Arizona, it's going to be the first time in a while that they've knocked ASU off, and so on and so forth.
Well, let me ask you this then. Do you think that adding this conference now, do you think that helps out Arizona in their tournament bid? Because I mean, we felt they kind of got a little shortchanged last year. Do you think now being in a conference and being able to play a few extra teams, do you think that helps them out a little bit in their tournament bid run?
It's nice in the fact that they're, you know, sometimes I believe it's probably a bit of a hassle for them to struggle out west because it's tough to get guys to come in. It's expensive to go out and travel. But all in all, it's probably a 50-50 split. Like, you would like to go out and maybe play some of the top-tier teams. Like we were saying, it's a nice thing in the independent league. But all in all, going in and playing ASU, playing Oklahoma, it's going to be nice for them to have a structured system. And in all honesty, I think they're an up-and-coming team. I think they're one of those teams that are on the rise, and I believe they have a pretty good, you know, opportunity in the next couple of years to perhaps take that conference and get an automatic berth.
Well, looking forward, maybe not this season, but into the future, I think this really helps Colorado and Colorado State because, as we said, your strength of schedule really matters in how you make the postseason. Right. So they're going to be thrown into the fire, but those are two very big schools, and you have to think that they'll have a very good chance to prove themselves and kind of initiate themselves into the ACHA Division I ranks rather early.
And we're going to hold it right there because now we're going to take a look at the preseason preview for the last year's champions, Minot State.
The boys are back in town and on the ice for the Beaver Hockey Training Camp. For the past 3 days, returners, recruits, and walk-ons have all been here at the Mesa Arena.
We do have some big losses and big holes we have to fill, but eventually they're going to get filled, and I think that the guys he brought in are just capable of filling those holes, and we're going to be just as deep. And maybe, in my eyes, maybe we have a little bit more scoring talent a little up front this year, so a couple of the new guys can really put the puck in net, looks like.
You know, for an hour I could probably skate laps around the ice if I wanted to, but the minute you have to lean on someone and battle and there's hitting and, you know, take someone hard to the net and stuff like that, just getting adjusted into that stuff, again, is always takes a few skates.
You know, we really see a lot of that competitive edge, and you know, for the first usually about half to 45 minutes of the actual session is pretty good. Then obviously towards the end, the kind of guys are not in game shape yet, which we'll work on. But the potential is there. You know, there's a lot of boys that are competing for different areas on the ice, and ultimately it's going to make it even more exciting to see who fits into what role and how it ends up being for our program going forward.
Goalie, right?
No.
1, 2, 3,
Thanks, Devin. I just wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity at the start of the show to be reminding all of you to be taking part in the conversation by hashtagging ACHA UD14 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We want to hear your questions, we want to hear your comments, we want to see pictures of where you're watching the show from. Clearly this is where Liberty's watching at, so we want to see where you're at. And also, remember, from some of the tweets we've been seeing leading up to the show, there's been some skepticism. I don't want to say any names, but maybe some Western CHL tweets we've seen. So just to set the record straight, yes, we will be seeing your tweets, your questions, and we'll be answering the best ones. Back to you.
Well, the Western Conference already getting on the discussion. Yeah. Just started. They're already getting going, huh? That's pretty good. Welcome, guys. Well, One of the things, and it's interesting that because we went to break before, we were talking about Minot State, one of the toughest teams to be on the road. In your opinion, toughest team to be on the road, and why?
I think first and foremost, you have to point out a team like Minot State. I didn't mean to jump on you there, Kevin, but when you win a national championship, when you go a whole season without losing a single game in front of your home crowd, you have to be the first team that's mentioned. But they're not the only team in this league that's very good. I know you guys have a number to talk about. I also think that the teams on the West Coast are extremely tough to beat simply because you have to travel to play them. I know that talking to some of the folks around the Ohio University hockey team, they'll tell you firsthand, it's hard to travel to that part of the United States. You lose a couple of hours. You have to be on a plane for a long number of time. You go into a rink that's not familiar to you. It's really difficult to play those Western teams. I think that is something that can't be overlooked.
I definitely agree with you on that, because if you've ever gone on a trip and you take, say like you take a long flight, fly all the way out to Arizona, that's a couple hours on a plane, then you get off, you've got to get back and get used to, the time difference. There's a lot of factors that play into going out west, not to mention Arizona State, one of the best teams in the ACHA, so go figure it's tough to play there.
Well, you know what? While I think travel is definitely a big factor in determining how hard it is to play at an arena, I think also if you look throughout the ACHA, you'll see a lot of unregulated rink sizes. You'll see some that are bigger than other, and some that are smaller than others. And two that really stand out, in my opinion, on the large side, Illinois. They call it the Big Pond. It's larger than Olympic-size ice. That presents a lot of problems for teams. And
I think that used to be an old speed skating rink, to be honest. It's a dandy for sure.
And I think if you look at the opposite end of the spectrum, a place like Byrd Arena, obviously I'm very familiar with Ohio University, but that's a very small rink size, so that favors bigger teams. So I think a lot of teams are not familiar with the different rink sizes, and that often plays a factor in it.
I think I give credit to teams like Davenport as well. They have a very good fan turnout that definitely boosts them. Liberty University, where we're at right now, they have 25 to 3,000 fans a night, and this place gets rocking. There's people right over the away bench, just on top of them all night long, which it's like a seventh man out there on the ice for them.
Listen, I was going to say, we heard a lot after our team came and visited you guys here about what the atmosphere is like here at Liberty University. We had to get down here just so we could see for ourselves if it was all that was cracked up to be. You know what I mean?
Well, the boat horn doesn't help either. I'll tell you, that thing goes off and your ears are ringing for hours. I mean, me and Rett have heard it more than anybody, but man, it'll give an audio guy fits, that's for sure.
But I think to say that, Minot's the toughest place to play, I believe.
I completely agree. I think you have to look at Minot. You just combined all of those factors. It's just such a long trek. That has to be the hardest place.
Oh, definitely. And one of those teams that is very difficult, one of those tougher teams that we thought should have made the tournament last year, Arizona, with their team preview.
Well, we're excited. We had our walk-on tryouts last week. We added one player, Tommy Bennett, that we're excited about through that process. We're excited about the guys that we brought in. They're coming from some leagues that we haven't typically been able to recruit from in Canada. So that's a tremendous step for us as a hockey program to bring in some of these high-level kids. And we're looking to make that next step as a hockey program to a perennial national tournament team.
It's a new mentality here. We're all here, we're ready to play, we're ready to get at it, get on the ice. This is our first practice, and we're excited to be out here and be just as a team going together, getting better, and coming for the upcoming season, because our goal is a national championship, and first we got to get there and we got to win games, and that's what our team is about, winning games and being together as a team.
I'm entering my third year here at the University of Arizona. Last year we had the most wins since 2006, 2007, so it was a great season for us. We beat some really high caliber top 10 opponents, which wasn't always the case in the past. So we're very excited from what we've done from year 1 to year 2, and now we're taking the bigger step from year 2 to year 3.
It's been a lot of fun. He can relate to the guys. He's still young enough where there's not that huge gap in between. And but yeah, everyone takes him seriously. Everyone respects him. Like he can come down on the guys when he needs to, or he can be real light with the guys. So he's a good coach.
We're looking for some big contributions from some of our seniors like Ansel Ivans-Anderson, Andrew Merms. We're looking for big things out of junior Mike Ferreira. And our goaltending with Steven Sisler, Dylan Honacki, and Garrett Patrick should be improved this year as well.
It's definitely been a long road. Freshman year we had obviously a different coach, and now we got Coach Hogan coming in, and this is his third recruiting class. And it's definitely been a struggle, but we're getting better and better every year. I love these guys on the team. They're my best friends. They've been my best friends for the past 3 years, and now that we got some new guys on the team, they're obviously going to be incorporated into the family, and hopefully, the outcome is good. We're going to work hard, we're going to battle, and we're not going to take no for an answer.
The one thing we're really fortunate here at the University of Arizona is our tremendous support here in the city of Tucson. Our fan base is probably amongst the tops in the ACHA and definitely amongst the tops in all of college hockey. And so we can't thank our fans enough, and we've been doing a great job with season ticket sales and with our push with our marketing. So it's going to be an exciting season for Wildcat hockey.
And another thing that's new, along with these new conferences, also a new ranking system for the ACHA.
Yeah, Devin, I think this is one of the most important parts of tonight's show because, as we all know, the most important thing coming into a new season is setting yourself up to play in the ACHA National Tournament. And this year, as opposed to years in the past, there will no longer be a coach's ranking system, at least in terms of mattering when you qualify for the national tournament. Instead, it is going to be a computer system that will decide who goes to the national tournament. It's kind of like a BCS system if you're a big college football fan. In this new system, what you're going to see is that the strength of schedule, your win-loss record, what your opponent's strength of schedule is like, perhaps other factors are going to go into where you are placed in this. It's going to get rid of a lot of the subjectiveness that came into the old ranking system, but it creates an interesting dilemma because some people liked the old coaches' rankings, others like this new computer ranking. So, guys, I pose the question to you, is this a good or a bad move for the ACHA?
Ryan, personally, I really do like this new system because I think it takes the guesswork out of deciding what team places where in the standings. I think you have to reward the teams that choose to challenge themselves, choose to play tough opponents. And, I think that means that this is a good system and certainly a little bit better than just having the coaches decide 1 through 25.
Now, do you think that this changes at all the way the teams will play their seasons out now that they know this new ranking is in?
Well, I think it certainly does. I actually talked to a couple of Ohio guys a few days ago, and they told me that what this does is it makes every single game of the highest importance. In fact, it's like every single game can determine the fate of your season. And I know that sounds silly because you would think that all years it's like that, but in the past, if you finished the season with a good enough record, you were going to get in. Points didn't really matter in terms of the computer system. Now the guys know that if they don't go out and perform against some of the best teams in this league, quite literally one night can make a difference. So in my mind, this system takes a team and makes them be accountable for how they play every single time they're out there. I love that about the new system.
There's aspects of it I do not like, and the fact is, now teams are going to go out there each and every night and try to run up the score. And that's going to lead to frustration, and then it's eventually going to lead to injury. So the one thing I liked is, about a human being ranking a team is they can look and say, Minot's playing a team like John Carroll that's a bit weaker on the schedule, and they beat them by a score of 7-1. They probably know in the second half of the game they let up. The computer isn't going to know that. So that's something that I don't know how you're going to be able to take that into account, but it needs to be figured out and rectified. Another thing as well is that maybe a team has a second half of the schedule and they do really well and they get hot and they start lighting it up. That team, they should rise, and they should rise pretty quickly. How is the computer going to be able to determine, hey, this team, maybe they were losing a star forward, a couple star guys were injured at the beginning of the year, and now second half they've got their team. That team deserves to be at nationals because they're a good, solid hockey team. That makes me nervous.
So you think, I'm sorry, Ryan, but so you think that adding the computer aspect of it maybe wouldn't be enough? Maybe there should be a little bit more to it than just a computer system to determine who should be ranked?
Yeah, I agree. I think there should be a bit more involvement from coaches, from a personal touch on there. I agree with the computer system, the fact that, it takes away the possibility of there being some tampering. Maybe a coach doesn't like a matchup that's possibly coming and, he switches it around. It takes away that temptation. But I don't believe it's the perfect system in place right now.
See, I certainly agree with you. I think that that's the best way to look at it, is that the system is certainly not perfect. And
right.
Listen, it happens. There are coaches out there, not to point anybody out, but there are coaches out there that'll rank the system or put their rankings together in a way that favors their team's matchup. However, the other thing that I think you have to look at, and this is something that you kind of mentioned, if a team, let's say Oakland is a great example from last year, if they have a number of injuries and they lose a lot of their best players, but they truly are one of the best teams in the nation, the system will never in a million years recognize that, and I think that hurts some of the best teams, and in the long run, it could hurt the competitiveness of the national tournament, because if the best teams aren't getting in, you're going to miss out on some of those great matchups we saw last year. I mean, consider how many games we saw that were in overtime, double overtime. I mean, it was a pretty good year of nationals last year with the coaches deciding.
Another perfect example of that is Delaware. You know, S.J. Broke comes in late, they start playing some good hockey, and they skyrocketed right up the rankings.
Right.
We don't know if that's going to happen with the computer system.
And another thing also that we could go on this forever about the rankings right now, because right now it's all speculation. We haven't seen it put into play yet, and we haven't seen how that pans out. But a few other new things, a couple of new teams that are now in the ACHA. We've got Wayne State, Rochester, Colorado State joining, and also Colorado. We mentioned those two earlier, but something interesting that we noticed earlier, Rhett, is about this Wayne State team. They jumped from D3 to D1.
Yeah, it's a pretty big jump in terms of hockey talent level. The Division III to Division I is a huge jump. D2 to D1, not quite as a big jump, but it's still some decent talent difference. Hopefully it's a situation. Kennesaw State back in the day used to be a Division III team, and they came up and would play some Division II squads and just compete and do extremely well. So I hope it's a situation where a very talented group, perhaps maybe they live in the middle of no man's land. I'm not quite sure where Wayne State is, but I'm hoping they fit in well.
And these two teams that are being added to that West Conference now, how do you see teams like Colorado, who seemed to struggle a little bit in D2 last year, how do you see them panning out in the D1 level?
I think the main thing that benefits schools like this is that they are big enough in terms of their student enrollment that not only can they recruit really well, and I know that Colorado State in particular is really excited about their incoming recruiting class, but they have the option to have those walk-on tryouts where they're going to have 25, 30,000 students that are going to come out and try to make the team.
Yep.
So I truly believe that those two schools can benefit from that in the long run.
Yeah, and also pointing out what better recruiting tool is there than to say we are now a Division I program. Yeah. And I think you'll see that significantly bolster both Colorado and Colorado State.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And one of the top ACHA teams at Division I, Davenport, our own Dave Semenina sat down with the head coach just this week.
Here with Coach Sweeney. Coach Sweeney, as we get ready for the 2013-2014 season, tell us about some of your incoming freshmen.
Well, we have a really exciting class coming in. We really loaded up on defense. We lose a lot next year for defense. So we feel that's kind of our strength this year. So we brought 3 guys in to be kind of mentored by our defense. One of them is Aaron Bealey from out of the Junior B Leagues at Welland in Canada. And, he brings good size, really tough in the defensive zone, so we're really excited about him. And then we brought 2 more offensive defensemen in as well, who are local kids. And then at break, we have one of our another defenseman coming in that, he led his league in scoring, so he's going to be, he's very, very offensively for a defenseman.
Okay. I know Wendecker and Jacobs are in their last year. Kind of tell us about how big of a role Wendecker's plays, because even around the league, he's noticed as one of the top D-men in the league.
Well, that's flattering for him. I'm excited everybody thinks of him in that light. We see it every day in practice, and we can definitely see his talent. But they're going to play huge roles this year. 2 of those guys and Graveline are the only guys left from our national championship team. So they're the ones that have, still have that taste of what it takes to win. And, Phil's going to be playing in every situation. Bo is going to be matched up against everybody's top line. He's just a pain to play against. And defensively, he's so good. And then, some of the other defensemen that we have, like I said, they're very good defensemen.
Awesome. And you mentioned you have 3 guys from your national championship team. This year, the national championship is in Delaware, where you guys won your first year into the league. Tell us about how big of an impact that's going to play this year.
Well, it's kind of, it's exciting to go back. You think, what great memories that we have at, Delaware's rink and arena. And, I'm excited that it's back in Delaware. I obviously wish Delaware was a little closer to Grand Rapids, but it was, I have nothing but great things to say about Delaware and their arena, because last time I was there was, one of the best days of my life. So, I'm really excited to go back there.
Yeah, and with the Olympic ice, tell us how that's going to play a factor for nationals and kind of how you're going to use that for your whole outlook of the season.
Well, we've really worked on our team speed through recruiting the last couple of years, and the Olympic sheet is, it opens up a lot of ice, and we really feel that our speed will be a huge advantage, for our guys going wide. We have a lot of really fast forwards that have a lot of outside speed, so we're really excited about that. We're switching a little bit of our systems up actually to get ready for nationals right off the hop. So. I don't want to say that too much to our guys because we got to think game by game. But in the back of our heads, that we're switching a couple things up to get ready for that bigger sheet ice.
Thanks, Devan. We hope that everyone has been enjoying the show so far. But if you are just tuning in now, so far we've been discussing a wide variety of topics, such as toughest teams on the road, toughest places to play, and fan support and atmosphere. Now, I just want to remind you guys, you need to be tweeting in at #ACHAUD14 so that we can answer your questions. I know you guys got some, right? Big fans. Back to you guys.
Well, it looks like the boys are having fun now
back
there. Aren't they?
Too much
Did you notice how they did the 360 so they get some video time?
Yeah, and a little FaceTime, eh?
They don't want to watch us. They want to see themselves. That's what it
watching
is.
those Matt Green videos too much.
Well, we're going to move along here, and this is a part that I'm actually really interested to get into. Top players, best players that we think this year in the ACHA, starting with forwards, and I'm going to look at you, Kevin, to get us rolling here.
There's just so many good, solid forwards that are returning to the ACHA this year, but, I'm suggesting someone that comes from maybe not as much of an offensive-focused team. I'm going to say Michael Jordan from Minot State, the returning defending champions. His numbers might not be as flashy, only 49 points a season ago, but
we just want to put out a disclaimer. It is not the basketball player Michael Jordan. It is a hockey player Michael Jordan.
But I'll tell you what, this guy has size. He's 6'4", 210 pounds. Yeah. Certainly a very talented player. I think he's someone that we really have to watch for this season.
Listen, I have a couple of guys that I really like that are coming off of their freshman year, and they were fantastic during that freshman season. First and foremost, you have to look at a guy like John Olin that played at Illinois. He had more than 40 points in that freshman year. He was a big-time catalyst for a team that won the regular season title in what we just said earlier is one of the best leagues in the nation. The other guy that I really like coming off of that freshman year is Sennett Patton, who plays at Adrian. He had 70 points in his first year, which was amongst the league leaders in all of the ACHA. You'd have to think that a guy like that, a guy like Olin, can only build upon what they did in that first season.
You got to take a look at Mark Zezut as well for Delaware. Last year, an injury-plagued team that really had a rough go right at the beginning, but he was the guy that led the way and kept them their ability for them to get their foot in the door to make it to nationals and start that hot streak second season. He had great numbers. Another guy you have to take a look at, Billy Ballant from Oakland. Another guy, a team that had injuries. And he's a character guy, scrappy guy that kind of led the way for the team, but also put up some really good points. I'm going to go off the map here a little bit, and most people are going to probably raise an eye at me and think I'm a little bit of a Liberty Flames fan, and that's okay. But I'm going to say Andrew McComb. And he's a guy that hasn't cracked the 40-point mark yet. But I see him day in and day out practicing. He's, in my opinion, one of the better two-way centers in the league. And this year, more of an offensive role. Rick Turner's gone. Brent Boschman's gone at Liberty. He's now top-line center. He's going to get the offensive opportunities. He's going to get the offensive zone faceoffs. I think this is the year he makes 60 points.
Well, I think you could say the exact same thing about a guy from Ohio in Brett Agnew. Brett Agnew, a guy that now steps in as the main forward after taking over for Tyler Pillmore, Nick Rostek, Jonathan Pietromala. A number of good forwards are gone for this hockey team. Brett Agnew had nearly 50 points last year. He's going to step up. He's going to be a leader for this team. I think that he is in store for a huge senior campaign.
And Kevin, how about top defenseman for you?
Well, people might suggest that I'm being an Ohio homer here, but I think
that's it, guys. Go home.
This guy has to be mentioned, and that is Jonathan Gulch. He is the captain for Ohio this season. He's just a tremendous two-way defenseman. Led the defense in points last season. I think he's a great player, often tasked with shutting down the top lines of opposing teams, and Just a very solid player. I think he's going to do a very good job this season.
You know, a moment ago, we talked to Phil Sweeney, the head coach of Davenport. He's going to be excited about the guy I'm bringing out here. Yeah. You talk about Phil Wendecker. I think he might be the best defensive player in this nation. He is certainly, in my mind, the best scoring defensive player in this nation. He had more than 40 points last year. I believe that's the second or third season in which he's done that, but he also plays well on the defensive end. Just like Kevin was saying about Jonathan Gulch, he is a two-way defensive player. Both those guys terrific.
I think it's always easy to look at the high offensive octane teams that always have forwards that can put points on the board. But you take a look at a team like Stony Brook. They got a couple guys that can put the puck in the net, but not overall. You don't consider them an offensive powerhouse. And you come down the line, you look at Chris Joseph for them. Only 12 points last year, but he has to take care of his own end of the ice first. But he's also putting up points for them. Solid defenseman for that team. Bigger guy, can move the puck well in the power play. He's got to watch out for this year.
And I think one guy we actually should give a little shout-out to. After this weekend, we saw Liberty playing against a junior team, the Hampton Whalers. I think Jackson Kuhn had 4 goals. I think that's the most I think he scored in a long time. So
yeah, I wouldn't count him for that. I wouldn't keep that production up, though.
But how about goaltenders? Top goaltenders, in your opinion?
Well, you know, I think the goaltender to really look at is from a team that's going to be very improved this season, a team that I think it has a very good chance at starting the year in the top 10, and that is Jonathan Cooper of Iowa State. The way this guy finished last season, just tremendous. You look at his numbers, 9-1-1, 1.20 goals against average, and a .956 save percentage. Yeah. He carried that Iowa State team towards the end of the year and just had a tremendous finish. I think he's going to be special this season.
I'm going to go back to the CSCHL in terms of talking about top goaltenders. I really like Andy DeCristofaro, who plays at Robert Morris. Last year, he let me down a little bit, and don't get me wrong, he had very good numbers, but I really expected him to be the best goaltender in all of the ACHA last year. He wasn't quite at that level, but I think with another year of experience, a very similar group around him, especially on the defensive end, I think that he is poised to step in, have a wonderful season, and I think that Robert Morris team can not only compete for a CSCHL championship, but an ACHA national championship.
I'm going to go off the board here a little bit again, go with Nick Clark of Illinois.
Oh,
he's
a
your guy
boy.
that, yeah, I like Nick Clark. He's a workhorse, this guy, and plays a ton of minutes. He sees more rubber than a dead skunk on the side of the road. This guy, you know, he's in there game in and game out, and the team goes where he goes. And this year, you know, I believe it's his senior year. I think he can put up big numbers. I'm not saying he's going to win goaltender of the year or anything like that, but I do believe that he is the reason that Illinois, you know, will go to nationals.
One guy we cannot forget, though, obviously, is our man from Minot State, Wyatt Waslenchuk. And apologies on the last name if I blow it. He was at Bird Arena twice last year. I called the game at Nationals, and I still can't figure it out. But truly a wonderful goaltender. He was the ACHA Player of the Year. I think very highly of his ability to guard between the pipes. I think he's in for another big year as well.
And now we're gonna change direction here a little bit. And this is something I'm actually really interested to hear from you guys. Obviously, you guys being from Ohio, you know a little bit more about the inner workings, per se, of the Ohio organization, but a coaching change this year, how do you see this affecting the team?
Listen, I know Kevin's going to agree with me on this one. Jonathan Sheridan steps in, and I think it is a wonderful decision for Ohio University. First and foremost, because John Sheridan has a great background in terms of his Ohio University hockey knowledge. When he was growing up, he played with guys or played for guys that were big-time performers in the Ohio University hockey system. So he knows what it means to coach Ohio hockey. He knows what types of systems they like to run. He knows what works at Bird Arena. So that's going to benefit him. The other thing that's going to benefit him is that he was an assistant coach last year for those Ohio Bobcats. He knows all the players, and Kevin, as he tells us, he knows what makes them go, what makes them perform. He's going to use that to his advantage, so they're even better in his mind than they were a year ago.
You know, I really couldn't agree more, and I think a really big thing about Jonathan Sheridan, he was a defenseman throughout his playing days. He's very good on the defensive end of the ice, and if you look at that Ohio team, they are going to be very defensive-based. I think he's a great fit, and you know, the points that you make should mean that it's going to be a very smooth transition from Jonathan Sheridan, at least as smooth as you could hope for a first-year coach.
And another team that also made a coaching change was Oakland this year, and Corey Hagewood has that story for us.
Corey Higgett alongside Matt Kenzie here at the Onyx Ice Arena in Rochester, Michigan for the ACHA preview show. Gordy Scheffler comes in as the new head coach for the Grizzlies. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Gordy's definitely been here for a few years, and I think it's time for his role as a head coach that I think he knows what to do, and I think he's going to bring a lot more discipline to this team and work on their faults that they had last year.
Looking around at 11 new faces, how does Coach Scheffler and Coach Horn, the new assistant coach, balance that?
It's definitely going to be a challenge, but these kids can definitely play. We've seen them. We've seen what they can do, and I think a lot of these sophomores and seniors on this team, such as Baker, they can all teach these kids, and I think it's time for, as well as they know, for their role to step up this year and help these freshmen that are coming in.
Looking at guys like, David Merkel, Frank Mattiak, Billy Ballant, Anthony Mesa, Grizzlies returned 3 out of their top 4 scorers. How important is that to keep things going?
Oh, it's definitely big for them and everything. They just got to stick to their game plan. Hopefully the injuries don't pile up, but even that, still last year, this team persevered through them. Like I said, a lot of new faces, a lot of new players, but I think we're going to definitely see quickly if they can gel, and I think that they can.
Really quick here, Corey Hirschshock, first time as the #1 goalie here. Thoughts on that?
He's definitely going to have some competition this year, which sometimes can be a good thing for a team, for a player, for a goalie, whatever the position is. But I think knowing that at any moment, if he has a bad game, he could be taken out. I think just that pressure could make him just become even better goaltender this year, to where every game counts.
Defensively, you have a lot of guys back there. Nick Rogers is back. How can his addition help?
It can help tremendously. You've got Baker that's also back on the blue line. It's just a lot of things. It just depends. Can this team gel together? Can they make it work? I think they can, but we're definitely going to find out in this next week with Game 1 of this season.
All right, we're here at the Onyx Ice Arena in Rochester, Michigan. Back to the ACHA preview show for Matt Kenzie.
Now, we just wanted to make sure that you all know, if you've been missing any parts of the show, the whole episode will be up on YouTube later this week. Now, keep sending in your questions, because we've been collecting a bunch of them and the guys are about to answer them. One that I thought was kind of interesting, since I'm in a room of supportive Liberty players. We just got a tweet from Hot for Novak, who said, Liberty's best player is Seth Hart. Huh. Personally, right now, don't really care. Back to you guys.
Oh boy, Seth Hart, eh?
Right
off the bat.
Boy getting razzed on.
That was a dandy. I'll give him that one. That was good.
Man,
that was good.
That one actually, that made me laugh.
Hey,
quite a
good
bit.
news. You know what? Our Wi-Fi hasn't cut out yet. That's one thing
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
So
You see
we're
that?
doing all right.
Yeah,
No, we're doing just fine this time. No black screens out there. No one can yell at us for that one. We also have coming up an interview with Illinois' head coach. Boy, I had a tough time saying that.
Coach Fabrini, here from Liberty University. Just wondering about your new players that you have coming in, some of your recruits, and some of your expectations from your recruits.
Well, we have a huge freshman class this year. I think that we have 15 new players, 3 new goalies, and 12 skaters. I'm expecting them to contribute a lot. The majority of our top 3 lines are made up of freshmen and sophomores. And some of our defensemen, I think we added 4 new D who are all going to play for us quite a bit this year. So I think as a group we're going to have a young team, but with some of the experience they have from juniors and some of the success they had in youth hockey, I don't expect our youth to be a detriment to us this year.
Awesome. I see you have a good mix of some senior players and some second-year players. I see you're returning 6 of your top 7 scorers. How do you think they're going to factor into working with all the freshmen?
I think that that's a big benefit that we have so many guys who produced for us last year coming back. I think with the freshmen that we added, we're just going to have a lot more depth. I think last year we could become a little bit predictable at times when it comes to offense. After our top 2 lines, we didn't really get a whole lot of production, but I expect that to change this year with our old guys bringing the new guys along and getting them on board right away.
Okay, good. Last year you guys lost to Arizona State at Nationals, a very good team. What are your expectations for this year at the National Tournament?
Well, I think that we have 3 team goals here at Illinois every year, and the first is to win the CSCHL regular season title, which we did last year. The second is to win the CSCHL playoff tournament, which we did not do last year, and the third is to win nationals. So I think that if we don't make a run at the national tournament this year deeper than we went last year, I think it'll be a disappointing season for our guys.
And a quick shout out, Dave Semenina doing our interviews tonight. Dave, leading point scorer for Liberty in their history, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
But besides that, some team, we're going to go to a little section here that's going to be a little bit of fun. I guess we're calling it Quick Pucks is, I guess, the name on the sheet. But in your opinion, what teams are losing the big, like, what is the biggest loss to each, like, player-wise?
I think that the number one guy in my mind that is being lost in this upcoming season comes from Lindenwood. It's Grant Gorczyca. Yeah. He's a guy that was there for 4 years, and he was phenomenal during his time with the Lindenwood Lions. In fact, he had more than 200 points that he racked up over that 4-year period. He was a big-time assist man, and the thing I loved about his game was that he usually was a facilitator, so he was the type of guy that would get other teammates involved, which I think is a really unique quality to have. But when the team needed a goal, they needed something important to happen in a big-time game, he was one of the first guys to step up and make that happen. And last year, he took a Lindenwood team that was good, certainly not great, and he almost took them all the way to an ACHA national championship. Can't look any further than Grant Gorczyca.
I think another big loss is you have to look at them going back to Stony Brook. Cassiati, their captain, and Casano, leading point scorers, guys that have led them over the last 4 years, gone now. Not sure if they've had the strongest recruiting class come in, so that's going to be a big offensive hole for them.
You know, I think a really big defensive player that is lost coming into this season is Nigel Dubé from Minot State. Just a big guy, both strong offensively and defensively. And you look at Minot State, you think of a team that is very good defensively and has very good goaltending. Losing a guy like that, it really hurts in that Minot State identity. You like to think, though, knowing who they have, they're going to bring someone in that's going to fill right in that defensive slot.
I think we also have to talk about Hofner from Oakland. Even though he was only a freshman, that kid, we could tell, was going to be a solid defenseman, a dandy, and he's gone now for them. And good for him moving on to higher hockey, but it's definitely a large hole on the back end for Oakland.
And what about the Flames with Rick Turner? Leading point getter.
Okay,
I mean,
you're going to put me on the spot here, but I'll be honest.
I'll do it. I don't care.
They bring in Mistel, and he's up there with Macomb now in a top 6 role, and they bring in Ward. And I like these guys. I like Mistel for the fact that he's not going to put up the points that Rick Turner did, but he's a guy that's a solid two-way hockey player. He's got great vision, and he's extremely smart with the puck. And he and Macomb seem to have a kind of chemistry that takes a while to create, and he's already got it. Ward, I like this kid not only because he's from Barrie, right across the lake from me, but because he's got really nice hands. The kid's smart. He's creative. You could see it last weekend. He's walking out of the corner trying to go top shelf. I think he's going to be Rookie of the Year potential, possibly. Wow. I'm not going to jinx the guy, but I'm saying I think once he gets comfortable, I'd like to see maybe a bigger guy in his line just to give him a little bit more time and space, but a solid hockey player.
You know, going back to Rick Turner, just a little interesting side note, Ohio's head coach Jonathan Sheridan grew up playing with Rick Turner, and he mentioned he thought he was a very solid talent, and once he went to Liberty, he really started to figure it out. And you look at the point totals, he's someone that I know at Ohio we pointed out quite a bit last season. We followed along. Certainly a big loss for Liberty, but as you said, it looks like a few guys are looking to step in to fill that void.
Yeah. Guys, we know a few moments ago that we were doing the whole Twitter thing that was happening, and I know that just a moment ago we saw up there on the screen there was the first question that was thrown our way. It had to do with the University of Central Oklahoma.
Right.
Do you think that they are going to find a way to not only make the tournament this year, but be 12th seed or higher and miss out on that first round?
Well, last year I got in trouble for saying something about that team, so I'm not going to say anything. But you guys are welcome to that one. I'm going to lay off that one. So.
No, they're going to have to be below 12 again this year, and they're gonna be fighting and battling every night to get in there. They will be a top 25 team. I think they will make it to nationals. But with teams like Arizona improving, ASU, they're going to have tough games every single night, and I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to get an automatic bid in.
You know, Rhett, you make an excellent point, and I think having to play that WCHL schedule, it is going to be very tough for Central Oklahoma, but you never know. We see it every year. We see a team kind of get hot at the end of the year. Right. If they're one of those lower seeds, you just never know. So that could be the case with Central Oklahoma this season.
And one of those teams that is always seeming to be in the top tier of the ACHA, Lindenwood, has also sent us a team preview for their season this year.
Well, let's just start out with the season in general, your expectations. You guys have one of the hardest, if not the hardest, schedule in the ACHA this season.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate that there's an awful lot of teams that want to play us, and also we want to play them, but it comes into past history, and pretty fortunate that in our upcoming season, it's another difficult season. I book the hardest season possible because it prepares us for a national tournament. And a national tournament is having some type of confidence that you can win big games. It prepares you and really accelerates the development of the players. So it's every game is going to be a challenge.
On the last season, you guys had a 500 record overall, but as you said, you really peaked in that postseason tournament. Do you feel that momentum can continue into this season?
No, I think it's a completely new season. It's new players, new outlook, and it has to be. If I look at last season, we lost. It was a failure. If we don't win the national tournament, it's a failure. So for me, that's ways to motivate. It allows me to generate more enthusiasm, more energy as far as to get the right players in and make certain that that type of feeling and sentiment radiates through our program during the summer. You can't be comfortable and soft just because, you went to the dance. Winning it, the people remember who wins it, and Minot State was fortunate enough to beat us.
And what are some of the strengths going into this season for the team?
Well, I like to have depth, and when I say depth, it's I don't really recruit position-wise. I'm getting the good athlete and the good character person more than anything else. To replace players that we've had a tremendous amount of past and experience from isn't fair to a new player coming in, or is it fair to the players that have left and have graduated? So we want to make certain that in recruiting that we're strong on the back end, we get solid goaltending. Every team that plays against us knows that it's a competitive game, it's a hard game, and we like to score goals.
And the Twitter questions starting to file in. We've got the third or fourth one of the night, actually. Arizona State, can they win the title?
Can they win the title? Yes, they certainly can. Will they win the title? No, I don't believe that they will. And I can already see my Twitter feed blowing up. I know how much those guys like using the Twitter feed.
Right. You signed up for it, man.
Arizona State is going to be very, very good this year. And believe me, I'm the first to admit that they have a terrific recruiting class coming in. They're bringing back some wonderful players, including a guy that was in the middle of the ACHA National Player of the Year running last year. But I do not believe that they are set up to win the championship. I think there are some teams that have better size than they do and guys that are more deep than they are so far, at least on paper. So I think that they're going to get deep once again, but they'll find themselves upset late in that national championship, maybe in the semifinals, if not the final game.
And another question, the first-year teams coming into like Colorado and Colorado State, do you see any of these teams making a splash, Rhett?
I don't know if I see any of these teams making a splash per se, but I could see Colorado State. I could see them making it to nationals. Barely, but I could see them making it. It's one of those teams that.
How do you think they make it? You don't think they win the automatic bid, do you?
No, they don't make the automatic bid, but I could see them coming in the low 20s somewhere and perhaps playing their way in.
How about another question here? Second-year players. Who do you think of the second-year players in the ACHA? Who do you think makes the most noise, Kevin?
Well, I know there's a few guys that Ryan mentioned earlier, and I hate to copy him, but I really like two of the guys he said. I'll take one of them, and I think it's a very easy choice, and that's Sennett Patton. He won Rookie of the Year last year in the ACHA, just put up tremendous numbers at Adrian. I think you can only expect a guy of that caliber to be able to repeat his season here in his second year.
And another question coming in. They're just filing in right now. This is actually really exciting because I love it when the people interact, and thank you for sending in these tweets, guys. And about teams that are going to make a run, like maybe teams last year that didn't necessarily have the best year. What teams do you think make a good run this year, maybe make it into the ACHA playoffs?
I'm not going to use the word turnaround necessarily in talking about this team, but I think that Niagara is poised to have a very good season. I think they're in a good place to have a number of good recruits come in. I think that they're slowly but surely building a very successful program. Last year, they were thrilled to make it to the ACHA National Tournament. I thought that they were in a really tough boat to lose the game that they lost in the first round. I thought they were good enough to win that game. I think this year they come out, they improve upon their seed going into the national tournament and potentially win a game. So maybe not turnaround, but successful year for sure.
I think one team that might turn around in the wrong direction, I hate to say, and I love these guys, is Delaware. S.J. Brote's gone now, and that's a very, very large void in goal. And Noble Tucker came in, and he did pretty well in spurts, but I don't think he's going to get the job done in the long haul, so I hate to say it. I hate to see Delaware perhaps fall all the way down out of national contention, but to me it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility.
We don't think they have somebody maybe lined up. They had some pretty good backup goalies. Do you think that they could fit somebody into that system and maybe work through it?
Yeah, you can fit a guy in, but you're not going to replace the minutes that S.J. Broat put in net for them, and that's just a matter of fact. It's not going to happen.
And we're going to send it to Dave now with the head coach of Minot State, the champions from last year.
All right, Coach Regier, the 2012-2013 national champions. How are you looking to bounce back this season and really continue to search for another national championship?
Well, I think it's going to be about keeping our guys humble. We have a couple of our core players returning in key areas, and I think our leadership is certainly going to reign king in regards to preparation for every game that we play. And we never kept guys overhyped, or we never try to keep guys' emotions in check and things like that. And I think for this year, just keeping guys humble, preparing themselves. It is once again a marathon because the hockey season is very long. But it's all about how we finish and not how we started. So just keeping guys on a humble line and make sure we manage our expectations. But that's what we do as a program.
Okay. I know you're losing your captain, a defenseman, and also Drysdale, who's about around 13 feet of D-men. So how are you looking to replace them? Because I know you guys were defensively strong last year.
You're absolutely right. Our defense was our strength last year, and our top two pairings of Drysdale and Dubé were a real big part of our program. Not only because of what they brought to the table, but their size and just stature was a big influence on how the ACHA national tournament kind of unfolded. But you know what? It's one of those things that we recruit, and we recruit 3 more defensemen to kind of fill in those gaps. And with the 4 guys that we do have returning that were in our top 6, it's certainly going to be something that's going to be guys going to have to step up and take a new role. But with our experience in returning guys, combined with our #1 goaltender coming back, it's certainly going to be that we're going to have other guys step up. And I think that's just part of being a college program, is that when 2 guys leave, you're going to have to bring in a couple more guys, and that's going to be the big part and big expectation with our back end this year.
Okay. Now, Nationals is at Delaware this year, and it's an Olympic-sized rink. I don't know if you have any Olympic-sized games this year, but how are you going to prepare for that?
It's certainly it's a different dynamic. The advantage we do have is we play 2 exhibition games against Williston State College, defending National Junior College Athletic Association champs, which is about an hour and a half away. They have an Olympic-sized sheet there, so we'll get to see kind of how it unfolds a little bit. Plus, we actually head to Champaign, Illinois, to play the University of Illinois on their big pond there in late January. So we are going to get some experience for it. For some guys, it's certainly going to be an adjustment. For other guys, they're kind of looking forward to that big ice and that wide range of speed. We might have to, on our long 24-hour bus ride to Delaware, might have to make a pit stop somewhere along the way and get some practice on those big ice. But it's one of those things that it is an adjustment. It is something that's part of hockey in general. But I think with the talent that we've brought in, I think that adjustment should be able to be overcome pretty quickly.
Okay, and last year you had a tough road to nationals. You played some good teams. You played Central Oklahoma. Then you played Ohio, and then you ended up playing Lindenwood in the final. What's kind of the key this year to get you prepared for those 4 tough games?
The biggest thing this year was it's always our schedule. Being an independent, kind of being in the middle of nowhere, way up in northwest North Dakota. Our schedule has always been our biggest weakness. This year we've kind of changed and finally have got over that hump with this year having 18 home games and actually playing against, defending a rematch with Lindenwood. We're playing Ohio again. We're playing Oakland kind of late in the year. So we actually have some quality games kind of late in the season and throughout the year. And that's going to help us a lot better. I think for a lot of guys, especially when we were in the top 5 for pretty much the majority of last season, it's going to be handling that adversity is going to be the biggest challenge that our program has. And I think with our schedule, especially our schedule at home, playing University of Arizona, who are going to be much improved this year, it's certainly going to make sure that we are battle tested and ready to go. And I think that that's going to be ultimately what's going to decide how we are when we get to the national tournament again this year.
More Twitter questions coming in, and this one is kind of fun. Outdoor game, who would play and where?
Well, I'm going to have to take two CSCHL teams. I'll say Robert Morris and Illinois in Chicago. Great rivalry, great hockey town. I think it's a natural fit.
I don't know if this follows the rules or not, but I would have Ohio play Penn State. Make Penn State come back for one more game, because these two teams are two of the best who have ever played in this league. They probably have the most history behind them, and I'd have them play out at Happy Valley on the football field. That would be a fun atmosphere.
I'm going to go with Oakland and Davenport. I want them to get Mother Goose right out there, front and center stage on the luck duck thing, and get it going. And it's just a great rivalry. The duck makes everything even that much more passionate, and I think it would be the epitome of awesomeness when it comes to an outdoor game in the ACHA.
I got to admit, we were looking at a picture of that duck. You were showing it to me earlier today, and that is the coolest thing I think I've ever seen. I want to see that duck in person, I'll be honest. But I gotta do a shout out also to the people who are tweeting in. That tweet, that last one, that was really fun, and thank you for that one. Yeah. That was cool.
Absolutely.
I guess the next one is biggest rivalry. And how about for you, Kevin? What do you think is the biggest rivalry in the ACHA, at least this year?
You know, there's quite a few, but I'm going to go to someone that Rhett just mentioned. You kind of stole my thunder there. Davenport, Oakland, the Good Luck Duck Series. You have to love that. That's a very fun-spirited competition. That's always a fun one every year.
See, the one that I really like this year, and it's a rivalry that's just now being fostered, is the one between Ohio and Liberty. And it's kind of ironic that we're sitting up here. We haven't gotten to a fist fight or anything just yet. But last year, and I'm telling you for a fact, folks, I talked to a lot of the guys on the Ohio side. They enjoyed but kind of disliked the guys from Liberty. And not in a way where it's like they disrespected the guys. They think they're a terrific team, but a lot of it was a heated couple of games here at this arena. This year they're playing at Bird Arena. It's going to be a fun atmosphere.
And those are some great games that weekend. I remember that. It was very good hockey. Yeah.
I think also, I'm not sure if it's a rivalry yet, but I think it has potential to be. And we were talking about Minot State and also Lindenwood. You know, if any team that knocks you out of the championship game, it's going to put a bit of a burr in your side, and there's going to be a passion there to take them down. So I think that one has potential.
And what do you think? Some teams that had a good season last year, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, but what do you think about teams that maybe necessarily didn't have the greatest end of the season last year? How do you think they recover after maybe missing out on the playoffs? Say like Arizona, they kind of didn't make it into the tournament. Do you think that they have a little chip on their shoulder maybe, especially since they play Arizona State like, what, 40 times a year?
One team that I think you really have to look at, and I hate to go away from Arizona because I do think they're going to be improved, but one team that I really like this year is Iowa State. And I think that they're going to rebound off of what was arguably the toughest loss you could ever have when they accidentally kind of scored on themselves to lose in double overtime against the Ohio Bobcats in the quarterfinals of the ACHA National Tournament. They bring back two 40-point scorers. They bring in a number of recruits that are very good. I think they're going to be fantastic this year.
Yeah, they brought in a young man by the name of Krug, I believe, and he played in the BCHL, had 12 points in 15 games, and that is a pretty solid league. So to put up that kind of points in that league and then come down the ACHA, he should be a pretty offensively potent player for them, and I agree. I think Iowa's going to turn some heads this year.
I really think a team that's going to be very good this season is Robert Morris. Down the stretch, the CSCHL tournament, they exited early, and also in the ACHA tournament, probably not the result they were hoping for hosting the tournament, but they bring a lot of guys back. We mentioned Andy DeCristofaro and net. I think that's going to be a team that is going to be improved this year, and I think they're going to compete for an ACHA national championship.
And I'm just going to throw this question out here really quick. Who do you think is going to be the toughest team to beat this year, individually?
Toughest team to beat, Minot State. They're the defending champions. They didn't lose a game at home all of last year. They're still the team to beat.
I can't disagree with that. I think you really have to say Minot State. Until somebody proves that they are the team to beat, I think you have to go with the defending champions.
I'm going to go with Iowa because I think they're a bit of an unknown. Not many people are quite sure of what they're going into when they play Iowa, so I think they're going to have a bit of surprise on their side.
Yeah, I think one team, maybe not necessarily the team that's going to be the toughest to beat, but one team that's going to play with a chip on their shoulder, I think, is Arizona, because we mentioned them before. They play Arizona State all the time, and they're kind of like the middle child in the ACHA, where nobody really gives them enough credit. But this team, I think, is a very good team. We saw them come here and play Liberty and play them really well. Yeah, and Liberty's a top 15 team.
And Sean Hogan is a terrific coach. I can't say enough good things about him. He's going to make that program competitive, not only in their league, but at the national scale.
For sure.
And also a tweet here that you can see on the screen, Oakland, another team that we think is going to be probably very difficult to beat. Every single year they're tough to beat. But that's going to do it for us here at LaHaye Ice Center. Thank you for joining us. all the guys on the panel here, thank you very much from the ACHA for letting us put this on, and we'll see you guys down the road.